respecting the president and all the rest of it, you never know. The press is also very fond of ginning up stories about unrest in this White House. So you never know exactly where any of this is coming from. It's before Donald Trump got elected, I said to a number of people, I don't know what's going. It'll sure be entertaining. I don't think any of us have been disappointed.
Yeah, on that front, it definitely has been a wild ride, but it's definitely had more consequences for some than it has for others. That's for sure. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting to look into on that front.
Bolton is an interesting guy, and some people have imagined that that's the reason our UN ambassador quit or is quitting. That her voice was undercut, but it's everything's ripe for speculation in this White House. Everything.
Yeah, I really just don't buy the narrative about the White House turnover situation. I just don't think that's a very big deal. What's the big deal if you're just firing a bunch of people and replacing them? It just
Agreed.
If you, as long as you just replace them, have a half-staff White House. When you don't have an ambassador to South Korea, that's a bigger problem. But when you have a few White House people fired and then you replace them, I just don't think it doesn't matter. It's just the same people.
In the private sector, turnover happens a lot. Our president did not come from the political sector. He just manages his affairs the way he sees fit, I think. And I think it's the media and the rest of Washington that can't adjust to the pace.
Yeah, it's just they're used to. I think they're just used to a bunch of people saying I've been around for 30 years of great public service, and the people what's John Brennan, that's the guy.
Yeah.
That's their image of being in Washington for so long and just serving so many people, and I think that's kind of what they're going for, but it's not very realistic. You don't want someone like John Brennan around for that long.
No, clearly, I think even Democrats and Republicans alike are a little dissatisfied with some of what comes out of John Brennan. So
yeah, I definitely have some serious problems with John Brennan. Yeah, but that is, and another person, speaking of which, who I have some problems with at the moment is Jared Kushner, because Reuters reports that the New York Times reports that Jared Kushner, President Donald Trump's son-in-law and a senior White House advisor, likely paid little or no federal taxes between 2009 and 2016, citing confidential financial documents. The documents were created with Kushner's cooperation as part of a review for his finances by an institution that was considering lending him money, the Times reported. The Times that said that Kushner's tax bills reflected the use of a tax benefit known as depreciation, that lets real estate investors deduct part of the cost of their properties from their taxable income. The Times report said that, and this is pretty incredible, that nothing in these documents reviewed suggests that Kushner or his company broke the law. And this is a guy who's getting with paying no income taxes. And my main question is, why don't we get this? Why don't we get this special thing where we can depreciate our assets?
If you make enough money, you can. First of all, I'm shocked that the New York Times wrote another piece about someone in the Trump administration and their taxes. How shocking. And the second thing is, in none of these articles does it ever say that anyone broke the law. Okay? So it's not as if you've got people who are, and I'm not a big defender. If you want to stop this from happening, change the tax laws.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The thing that says no one broke the law, to me, what's with the laws that they can get away with this?
I agree. And then that's the biggest gripe I have with these stories is that they're always bashing someone for being responsible with their money.
Yeah, so that's Yeah, that's kind of a interesting, because you always have those type of people who are like very much more aggressive when it comes to that, and like they have more, like, pretty much the point is they have more opportunities to like be not just like responsible. They just have to be more opportunity to be tricky. They have more people to find better routes of escape for them to put in and hide their money, and I think that's just better.
You and I have spoken about this before. We, every once in a while we end up in the discussion about rich people getting richer, and no one will ever stop that from happening. That is going to keep happening until there's a tax code that is transparent and it is equal for everyone. And if Steve Forbes in the probably was the late 80s or the early 90s was talking about flat taxes, and the world was up in arms. This was radical and revolutionary. I mean, it would certainly save a lot of trouble if whatever income you made was taxed at a flat rate, whether you made $40,000 a year or $400 million a year. It shouldn't matter. Rich people get rich because they can afford the accountants and the lawyers and the fees for tax shelters and shell companies and everything else. I mean, that's how it goes. And if we don't like it, petition your congressman. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I mean, that is pretty much all you can do at this point. And I think while you say that rich people are getting richer, I think they're going to get richer, obviously, like, most likely, because they can afford the accountants. But there are ways we can stop them from getting, like, this rich. Like, you can put a cap on it, or put a little bit of a filter on it, is all I'm saying. And that's what I think, like, most people on the left who are would like to do, or who are actually serious about, like, economic policy and, like, monetary policy, like, progress. Like, that's what they're focusing on, just kind of putting a little bit of a cap, a little bit of a filter on this, so this just doesn't happen rampantly all the time.
Right. These are all things that have to be done legislatively. They won't be done by executive orders. They won't be done by companies on their own. It's just never going to happen. Like I said, call your congressman.
Yeah, it's going to face a lot of resistance from, like, a lot of powerful interests that are out there, and that's what's going to be such a tough fight. But if you have, like, a lot of people behind it, which there are, like, the popular support is behind that, like, just kind of holding the rich a little bit more accountable, make sure they pay their fair share pretty much, then I think it has a much better chance of success. If you look at, like, how much money the Democrats have been raising, it's been very, very interesting. And speaking, this is a perfect segue, because we're going to now go right into Beto O'Rourke. I swear I didn't even think about this. But Beto O'Rourke's fundraising is now tripling Ted Cruz in his Texas Senate race. And this is the incredible thing. He raised $38.1 million for his campaign in the third quarter, triple what Cruz's team collected. And by the way, Ted Cruz is doing it with PACs. He's doing it with corporations, which makes it all the more incredible that he tripled him in fundraising, part of which, by the way, are another SWRN correspondent, Nicholas Walsh, my father, donated $50 to Beto O'Rourke's campaign. The contribution came from 802,836 individuals, the majority from Texas, the campaign said in a statement. So, and there's no PACs.
I'd love to see them break down those numbers, though. The majority could be 51%, okay? And I'll bet you it is something like that. And that the rest of the money came from California, New York, and Illinois.
There are definitely ways we can now look into that, though. So let's see. That'd be interesting, because I do not know, because there is a lot of support for him in Texas. Like, the polls are he's definitely very much hanging in there, and I just don't know if it goes to his open secrets page, which is pretty much, if you don't know, it's a website that breaks down campaign finance summaries. So he's raised $23 million, and I don't think if the newest report is out yet, but it says no special interests, no corporations, all people. And to me, like, if it's all people, like, again, A, you like them to be from Texas, but B, like, you really much prefer it's all people, not PACs or special interests, which is a very good thing to have in our politics. Like, just have, like, people who are not beholden to that kind of stuff is just such a powerful idea.
It's the Bernie model. I mean, it's if you can do it, great.
Yeah, and yeah, definitely got to have a lot of support for that, which can be very tough.
Yeah, listen, I believe that there's too much dark money and PAC money and organized money in politics anyway. I don't know how you get rid of it. I mean, it's such an embedded fact of electoral politics in the U.S. And on all sides. I mean, unions and on top of, the Koch brothers and there's plenty of liberal. You got guys like Tom Steyer,
George Soros,
George Soros, right? So there's no. Those guys would flail, fight hand and tooth and nail to preserve their right to give. So, again, if you don't like it, call your congressman. But your congressman is part of the problem.
Exactly. Like, that's why you gotta have, like, there's just a lot of people running, Beto included. You got people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a lot of people I could name, like Jamie Schoolcraft, just people running, Carrie Eastman, just a bunch of people running under this kind of umbrella of like left people. Like, there's no right wingers from my knowledge who are running without any corporate back money. But there's a lot of left wingers who are out there coming in saying we're going to reject this, and they're actually having some success because their ideas are actually gaining popularity, and that's what personally I want to see in politics.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you dropped out a second there.
Yeah, just a bunch of like left wing people gaining who are just running without the support of like big PACs, special interest corporations. And
I mean, it appears that way. I mean, I'd love to, again, go through all the actual numbers. But yes, it appears that way. But I think it's simply because, by and large, conservatives are connected to larger and wealthier organizations.
Yeah, they have the support of the moneyed interests, and just like the big groups. It's not like supposed to be a smear. It's just the truth. It's just the way it is. But unfortunately, the problem is for the conservatives, like a lot of people, including myself, see it as in a bad light. Because
right. Oh, and I understand that. I mean, I don't think it's as horrific as the far left makes it out to be. This is just how this is how our electoral politics work in this country. I mean, there are special interests in every country, every government. It's wherever there's concentrated power, there'll be concentrated money.
Yes, and then right now in America, there definitely is a lot of concentrated power at the top of our kind of political food chain.
Yeah.
All right, so we now turn to, speaking of power, we got a lot of power right now is going to suburbia of America. And a lot of suburban women are taking turns to stand with Democrats, and many suburban men are standing with Trump. For example, this quote, a little bit of exchange in the New York Times between a guy named Robert Peters and a guy named George Fidelibus. They're walking off the 18th green in the golf club of Dublin, the little pints of beer as they're heading to the patio overlooking the course. In their conversation, turned the president, saying, "I'm feeling better and better about him all the time," Peter said. He was a retired engineer and once been cool to Trump. Mr. Fidelibus, who's a retired banker in a Callaway hat, said that he'd been skeptical of the president's bullying, lack of self-control. He said, "I'm a supporter of Trump now. He may not always say the things most presidents before him said, but what does it matter? They get the job done." And that's, I think, pretty much, it's a very key quote from suburban Republicans. And it just shows you, like, yeah, like the main thing, and I think you're a person. It's kind of perfect that we had you